to meet, I met Tony early in my career. When I first got here, the Stampeders were losing money and they had a thing called SOS, Save Our Stamps. So the first day I was here, I wanted to make an impact, so I thought, how can I do this? So I climbed up into the towers at McMahon Stadium, not knowing that there was thunderstorms coming for 5 days and you were sleeping on metal. So I really hung it out there. And Tony and Mark McLaughlin were the first guys to climb the tower, and that's how I met Tony. And then we went on to become fast friends, and Spolumbos was just starting, and my career was just starting. And the two meshed together, and we've been friends for over 25 years, and it's worked out just great for community. Tony and I had a dream, and it worked out fantastic. So thank you once again to Calgary, and thanks to my good buddy.
Thank you. I'm born and raised Calgarian to two parents, immigrant parents that came over from Italy in the late 1950s, early 1960s. And you know, being Italian, your parents always used to razz you because they were very poor after the war and they didn't quite understand sports. My uncle used to say, you know, you get paid for playing this game. He goes, you're like a couple of male sheep that just smash heads. He goes, you guys are stupid. You know, why do you play this game? Do you get paid? He goes, you want to lift the weights, push a wheelbarrow. He goes, so after hearing you get paid, I signed my first contract, and it wasn't much. I was making 28 grand a year, $500 signing bonus. So anyway, I kept the receipt of my first check, and so when we came back to Calgary, I showed it to him. He looked at what I made. He said, big deal, I make more doing one driveway. And he was right. He finished the driveway and made 3 times as much as I did playing my first CFL game. But after, you know, Jerry was our sideline guy, and Jerry used to rile the crowd. Like, he'd have a mic like this, and he'd get you going. There's a rule in the CFL called the Forbes rule. Don Matthews and Dave Ritchie had it put in because there was a big game against the Argos, and Doug Flutie was with Toronto then, and it was late in the game, and the Argos were driving, and if they scored, they were gonna win by a couple points. So Jerry, just as every time Flutie got under center, Jerry would go, come on, let's hear it, and the crowd would yell. So basically, they got a delay of game, I think once or twice, and it ended up blowing the game. And at the end of the game, you know, Flutie walked over. They're good friends, and they had a kind of a funny exchange. But not even 2-3 weeks after that, a rule came in that the crowd can go crazy on its own, but cannot be enhanced by the media person on the sideline. So this guy's got a rule in the CFL, and that's pretty amazing. But when we started Spolumbos, Jerry was with, believe it or not, Light 96. It was Jerry, the coach, Jamie Herbison, and Roberto Durazio. And I went to see Jerry. It was the Stampede of 1992, and I had this little Tupperware with some sausage. I said, hey, but Tom, Mike, and I are doing this little sausage deli. And he goes, hey, come on the air. And from that moment on, he was a big fan of ours. And whenever we did charity events, Jerry was always there. And we'll get into more of that relationship. So thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. A really quick segue into what we're talking about, because it is about business. But in March, was it March, the Italian Sportsman Dinner? I think it was March.
May.
It was in May.
We'll start with an M. Good enough.
It's like 2 days of the week that start with T, today and tomorrow. But anyways, I had the privilege of sitting next to Jerry, and my son is a big baseball fan, and he got the opportunity to meet with Johnny Bench. So I introduced him to everybody at the table, and Jerry was really nice to Dominic, and that was that. And the next night he comes over and he goes, Dad, what? Jerry's the real deal. I guess he Googled Jerry. And, you know,
Yeah, don't Google Jerry.
and I go, yeah, don't go too far down, but he's the real deal, and I'm really happy you're here. I'm going to start off with one question because, you know, the theme here is really business networking and trying to grow your business. And the first question I have is for Tony. And how many Vanier Cups? 2?
Yeah, 2.
2 Grey Cups?
1.
World Cups?
0.
Okay. So how does an incredibly successful CIS football player Vanier Cup winner, Grey Cup winner, football player, you know, high school, everything. Transitioned from, you know, sport to being a successful deli owner.
It's because I didn't finish my degree. And the cement market was saturated. No, it's true. I needed to do, and you know what, if it's the one thing, and I'm going to be straight up, if it's the one thing I'm probably ashamed of was, I got drafted after my 4th year. I think I had, Bruno, about 8 classes left. And you know what, you start making some money, you start living that lifestyle, and it's pretty hard to go back to school, right? And so when it was time to pack it in, you know, after, you know, the CFL is a great league for camaraderie. You can actually the CFL is like power networking. If you really know how to use the league properly, you can set yourself up for life afterwards. So many of my ex-teammates are successful, oil guys, entrepreneurs, you know, lawyers, coaches, you name it. And so that, you know, the CFL money isn't life-changing at the moment. You play in the NFL, you play 3-4 years, you're set up for life. CFL, you know, you play 3, 4, 5 years, you get into, like I said, into the finance world, into the oil world, into sales, you know, entrepreneur. You make really good contacts. So when we got done playing, we just figured, you know what, the cement market was saturated. My good friend Frank was already doing that. You know, I got members, family members, delivering cement, finishing cement, placing cement, buried in cement. Because everybody was doing cement. So we said, what else do we know besides construction? And that was food. And so we got into the sausage business. Tom's mother-in-law, my cousin Tom, married into the famous Tuda family, the original Strombolis and Villa Forenza and all that. And they were so kind that they let us start making sausage out of the basement of the Villa Forenza in 1992. And then we moved over to Inglewood in July 7th of 92, and then just kind of grew over time. But it was about creating a job.
Tony, I was going to ask you, how did you get from the basement to where you are now? Like, what was there a point in that career, in the business career, that was the turning point for your business?
Well, we knew we needed to get out of there because they were so kind. And we had that. Mario, we started. If you still see that the deli, that little 25-pound hand crank, that's what we used to start with. We go down there like at 2, 3 in the morning, and we crank out that 50, 60 pounds, and maybe had 1 or 2 accounts, and just tried to flog it. So what ended up happening, and again, networking. An old teammate of ours, Dean Lang's uncle, had the original 9th Avenue Deli. This guy, really nice man named Lee. And he wanted to retire. So Dean said, hey, I heard you guys are looking for some space. My uncle is selling this deli in Inglewood. It was called the 9th Avenue Deli. We go down there, and we just needed something more updated than this hand crank. So we had this 1960 German kind of hydraulic sausage press, and you could put 100 pounds. So for us, going from 25 to 100 pounds was like riding a bike to Nassau. It was unbelievable. It was like, wow, this is going to be unreal. But it was 1960 machine, but for us, that was like high tech. So we bought this deli for that sausage press, and we needed cash flow, so we kept the front end. And we changed a few items. We kept some of the favorites, and then we changed the front end to an Italian flair. So a lot of the original sandwiches we have now, we created when we opened that little front end. And what ended up happening there was the front end grew faster than the back end initially. And then, you know, about 6 years later, we ended up buying the land that we sit on now, and we built the new facility in '98.
That's awesome. So let's talk to Jerry. Jerry, how did it all start?
I was going to say the best thing was too, knowing Frank from Africa, if you had somebody else getting into the sausage business, they'd end up underneath the sidewalk so Tony could do better. So it worked out absolutely fantastic. Getting to know Tony was a lot of fun, and yeah, when he first started, there was only the staff at Spolumbos was 3 guys. It was Tom, Tony, and of course Mike. And those 3 guys did all the marketing. So Tony and I got together, and we started doing sausage together. I'd go out on a remote for the radio station, and I said, to get your name out there, why don't we barbecue, and we'll use Spolumbos. So that's how we initially got Spolumbos out there. We were too stupid to smoke them, so it took us like an hour to cook them, but we finally figured that out. But one time, the Eagles were coming to town, the rock band, and it was around April Fool's Day, and the day they were arriving was April Fool's Day. So I got on the air and I said, you know what, we're going to have the Eagles perform in the parking lot at the radio station. Come on out and check them out. This is going to be unbelievable. So I thought 10, 15 people may show up. 500 people show up. Tony and I are there cooking, and I'm going like, this is either going to be great or just horrible. So what I did was I called around to car dealerships in town, and I found someone named Glenn for Glenn Fry, somebody named Don for Don Henley, and they were both car salesmen. So everybody shows up at CJ in the morning, and I go, the entourage is on the way, the Eagles are going to perform here in the parking lot. Everybody's happy, we're raising money for the food bank, we raised $5,000. Tony's cooking, and I go, ladies and gentlemen, they're just about here. They pull around the corner, and their Jeep Eagles honking their horns and flashing their lights. So, in fact, they were Eagles, just not the Eagles. So I go, what a great time, and I go to the concert that night, and Don Henley stops the concert, and he goes, you know, some people go too far. This guy is an asshole. I'm like, well, welcome to Calgary. So, about 50% of the crowd applauded, 50% booed, but I got my name out there, and so did Tony. And on the front page of the paper it said, who's right? The Eagles, they take $1.2 million to lead. Jerry and Tony raised $5,000 for the food bank. So that's the kind of stuff we did to get going. You take a chance like that, and if you don't take chances in life, and you don't use your imagination, you go absolutely nowhere. So that's how I got started. That was the first one. And then, of course, living in the tower for the Stampeders. And then we started doing really nice things where we get together to raise money to have barbecues. We were lucky enough to be able to support the city by rent through a school bus, which is another great story. So we're at the dinner, and corporations are stepping up to buy these school buses. And the last one is not getting sold, and I couldn't afford it, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to see if I can do this. The school bus was $26,000. So I said, I'm in. And my wife went, are you nuts? It's $26,000. And the reason I did that, there were a lot of guys in there that were CEOs and the head of companies who probably should have been the guy that put their hand up. And they were so embarrassed about a stupid disc jockey that was going to spend $26,000. I had that thing pieced out the moment I said that. Cost everybody about $3,000, but we got the school bus. So once again, taking chances.
I want to explore a little bit more with each of you about the community. Obviously, a lot of business types here. People get busy in their businesses, right? Doing stuff to make sure their businesses continue to operate and do well, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I notice is that the really successful businesses are the ones that get involved in the community and have contacts and connections within the community. Maybe you could start with Tony addressing that. Like, how important and why is it important for a business owner, especially now, to be involved in the community?
Well, I think especially when what I noticed as a kid in Alberta was this is a great, especially Calgary, great place to live. There was always corporate sponsorship, and I think what we get right here in Alberta is it's great to try and solve world problems, but I think we really need to look after our backyard first and foremost, and that is, you know, making sure there's facilities like this. There's facilities for the, you know, the working poor, for the kids. Like, if you think about it, Calgary still has a ways to go for youth athletic facilities and for, you know, I think we've done an excellent job with our homeless people, and we're very good in that aspect, and can always be better. So I think focusing in our own backyard, Albertans and Calgarians have always been fantastic for that. And you know, and in turn, I think if you do that sincerely, which 90% of the people in the city are very humble, they go about it very low key, and stuff gets done. And you can see, Mario, even in these tough times that have hit us with obviously the change in the economy and the energy industry and what have you. I mean, the energy industry was extremely generous. The real estate industry, extremely generous. Pretty well every facet of the city is extremely generous. And sometimes people don't understand that if those industries aren't allowed to operate or to be able to work, a lot of that stuff dries up a bit. Now, it didn't a lot, because people here still give, and that's why I'm so proud, is to see how much Mario is still being donated when a lot of people out there have taken a big hit. And that just shows you the spirit of the city, and that's why I grew up around that. I saw that as a child, and I think once we were in a position to have a good life and to be able to do the things we wanted to do, it's only normal to want to contribute into that fraternity.
Jerry, and you can talk a little bit about that. You're out in the community a lot, different events. Have you seen any changes in the last little while simply because of the way the economy is?
I've seen a lot of oil guys crying when those expense accounts went away. I remember when guys were going for lunch and spending $16,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? But through the tough times, we pulled together. I pulled together with Tony, and we were very lucky to be able to raise money. We would, I got to know a lot of the police department. I got to know the fire department, and I would explain to Tony that we had to raise some money when Nathan O'Brien got murdered, or Sarah Bailey and Talia, that little girl that got murdered, and the mom that got murdered. I was able to go to Tony where we could raise the money through people that he knew in the community. And then we started a GoFundMe, and we paid for the funerals for those kids. And then I would keep my eye open and saw the tragedy that happened in Brentwood, when 7 people were killed there too. Once again, back to Tony. We raised a bunch of money through Spolumbos and also through the GoFundMe account, by the help of the police, the Calgary Fire Department. And then the moment I would get Tony to go out and reach out to people like you, we raised the money. We raised like $65,000, $70,000 in one day, and I was able to take a check to the family, and they didn't have to worry about the funeral when they were going through their time of grief. Tony helped the football fields, the ones that are down at Shoaldice. That was Tony. I was able to go meet Jim Prentice, who was served in the federal government as an MP, and then later became the Premier of Alberta. And I saw an opportunity to meet him and introduce Tony and Frank to him. And I said, let's get involved in his campaign. And we went and we cooked sausage for the future MP and MLA. And just by getting to meet that guy, we were able to get through and get the funding for those football fields. And that was all Tony on his own, working his butt off. And rather than put Tony Spolatini's name on there, they put Ted Heller's, and he goes, I don't give a darn. But all that, a big round of applause for Tony. That was all him.
Speaking about football, Tone and Jerry, here's is it okay we switch to sports for 5 minutes? A little bit of fun. Best dino ever.
Best time ever.
Yeah.
Great Vavra.
Okay. Point blank.
Yeah, no questions asked. Yeah, great Vavra.
So I have a little bird in the room. When I first started coaching with the Dinos, Coach Pisano, I didn't really know Coach, and he set up these teams for training camp. And he would always say the toughest player ever, and he's right here, right, Tony? Put up your hand. I can't lie about this. Toughest player ever to put on a Dinos uniform was you. So, and once I got to know Tony, there was nothing that would put him down. So from the first day, I transitioned out here from Ottawa for a 2-year contract, and certain things happen in life. And I remember walking into Squambo's Deli, and that's when it was a small one. I was being confronted with some suspicious people in the lineup outside. And I go, what the heck is this place, right? And we weren't sure. I mean, we had to stick around. And from day one, we were destined to meet. And I always thank Tony, and I don't think he realized on how much I really appreciated it, because I knew very few people here. We kind of had to stay. And I volunteered to coach for Fall Wicklow strike year. And Tony came up to me and he said, anything you need, anything. And I went home and I told the family, and I know Tony, went to school with Tony. My wife used to sing the Eagles to all the young girls in Bray Buff. I go, can he sing? Not really, but he tried. And but it's a long way to say that he went out of his way for something he really didn't know, but he knew that I was trying to give back. And that meant the world. 21 years later, anything that, Tony would say, and then I, walk into the Dinos dressing room with Coach Fasano. He's getting all the junior guys ready and singling out this Tony Spallettini as being the toughest character playing there. So I think that's a great thing. Third Spallettini from your family playing right now, right?
Actually, it was Tom, myself.
No, I'm talking about your family.
Oh, from my family, yeah. My youngest boy, Mateo, yeah.
And so Giancarlo played there also.
Yes. And
So how active are you with the Dino alumni?
just fundraising. Coached for a little bit, a couple of years, but just mostly helping out with the fundraising and with feeding the guys and that kind of stuff. So whatever they really need. But I'm getting kind of embarrassed here because these guys are really kind. Most of you know that when to do things, you're part of the team, and a lot of times a couple people get to be the front of a group and that. So like the Schuldice and all that, that doesn't happen without a large group of people. So people like Greg Peterson, Don Dom, and there's a whole multitude of people in the amateur football community that were a part of that. And then these guys are always very kind and single me out. But like Bruno said, that field is named Heller and Canada Stampeder for a reason. The Stampeder owners, Ted Heller put in $500,000 of his own money for the one field. The rest of these Stampeder owners, John Ferzani, Rod Peters, Paul Colburn, all that group that had it before the Flames bought it, they put in $500,000 for the others. And I remember going to see a very great man, Jerry Prodi, who was the vice president of Encana at the time, having lunch with him at Sandro's, now it's called Reyes, and Jerry not even batting an eye, and Encana, putting up $500,000. So that's how you get things done here. It's because of that generosity, because of people like you, and it's because of many people working together. And I think that was the big advantage of being on an athletic team is understanding that without, and football is very good for that, because you've watched NFL this week, a lot of quarterbacks going down, because if you don't have a Mike Riley in BC, if you don't have a good offensive line, you could be the highest paid quarterback, you're going to be injured, right? So you need everybody working together and everybody doing their thing. So thanks guys for really singling me out, but I really cannot take that credit or feel good about if you didn't realize that there was a huge teams that were involved doing all this stuff together. Thank you.
Tony, you mentioned Greg Vapra. For those people that don't know, Greg was quarterback of the Dinos back in the early 80s, probably one of the finest Canadian quarterbacks that ever has played the game. So when I met Tony the first time, 1983, he was a rookie, 17-year-old rookie. He was up for the Rookie of the Year nationally award. What I wanted to ask you, Tony, because you did mention earlier today about how many players from that one team went on to be very successful business and community leaders in Calgary. What was it about sports that you took as sort of takeaways that helped you in your business career? Like, what can we learn from sports and to translate to business?
I think it's having to rely on other people, putting your ego aside and having to trust someone else to help you achieve a goal. And then having like great role models. To me, a football team was like your family. I have a couple of my coaches out here, Tony Fasano, Tommy Higgins, and Peter Cannell, and we were mentored by some incredible people. So basically your head coach is like your dad, the assistant coaches are like your uncles, and then your teammates are like your siblings. And if a family's dysfunctional, so for example, you've got a head coach or father that isn't consistent, that doesn't discipline consistently, that isn't consistent in how he treats his players, and you got assistants that don't support him or only support a few of the siblings, and then if you don't have respect between the players, like if you don't respect your family, you're gonna have a messed up family, you're gonna have a messed up team. That's why a lot of times you see these fiascos like Antonio Brown, some of that stuff, it gets out of hand. The really, really good teams are are the ones that everyone is on the same page, everyone's willing to sacrifice, someone's willing to take a pay cut so you can keep someone else, someone's willing to block instead of catch a pass, someone's willing to be double covered, and maybe they're not going to get their stats because it's going to free up somebody else. It's about trusting someone else. It's about believing that other people are going to be there for you. And there's no greater feeling than to win. Like, I mean, it was phenomenal when that young woman Andreescu won. Like, I mean, I think individual sports are amazing because you've got no one else to lean on but yourself. But I think it's even a greater feeling when you can hoist a cup with 10, 12, or 30 other people because you got someone to share that enjoyment with. And I know it's exhilarating to be the heavyweight champ or to win the US Open, but you're alone, right? And so to be able to share success with other people, Mario, I think that is the key that you get from sports. And I think to be successful in business, you've got to be able to share it with other people. And you know, a lot of you out there are providing jobs for people. You're helping other families survive and grow and that. And I think that's where you get from sports merit, is that you're helping each other.
You know, it's interesting that early 2000s where the oil market, the oil prices weren't crazy, they were just throwing money at you. The generosity is crazy between both of you. I want to ask Jerry something really quick. Why don't we talk about the great honor up in Edmonton?
Oh yeah, that was kind of cool. What got me started in philanthropy was my father. His name also was Jerry Forbes, but he spelled it with a J. And when I was a kid, I guess I was like 3 years old, he explained to us, he said, you know, to myself and my brothers, you always have to give back. So my dad started something called Santa's Anonymous, and he made sure that every kid in northern Alberta and all of Edmonton got a gift for Christmas. And my dad did that from 1955 right until the day he died. So they named Santa's Anonymous after my dad, and they just opened an amazing warehouse where there's some 17 charities that all work together. So if the Kidney Foundation wants to talk to the United Way or talk to the Heart Fund, they only have to walk 10 feet. So they can talk about sponsors, exchange money and ideas, and it's all under one name, named after my father, the Jerry Forbes Center. So that's what got us started in this thing. And Tony makes a good point. We kept team after that. If I needed somebody, I could call Tony, or Tony could call me. There was a big crisis, as you remember, when we had the mad cow disease, and everybody was down in Alberta, and everybody was down on ranchers. So Tony and I came up with an idea. I said, we got to do something really stupid that's going to make the news and make the newspaper, and nobody does stupid like Tony and I. So we got together, and I said, at the Labor Day Classic, we found a guy that would let us use his parking lot. Well, we knew a guy named Normie, and he ran a bar called Moose McGuire's right next to the stadium. So once again, Edmonton Eskimos are in town. Everybody's coming out to see the football game. And I said, to show people that everything's okay with the mad cow disease, that's really not happening, why don't we dump 1,000 pounds of cow shit on me? So Frank got a crane, he got a dump truck, the fire department was there, the paramedics just in case. We got a crane, and Tony and I lay down on the bottom and had 1,000 pounds of steer crap dumped on us. So we were hiding under a pyramid of this. It was huge, front page of the paper. Just doing that thinking out of the box and getting some coverage on the TV and radio. And we raised a bunch of money that day and donated it all back to the ranchers to make sure they would get through that crisis. So every time something comes up and people needed help, the fire department would call me, the police chief would call me, I had friends that were constables, and they'd say, this family needs help. I would call Tony, Tony would call Frank, we'd call everybody, get all our cards in a row, and figure out a way that we could go raise money for people. But it's important in business too, like it is in sports, that you have a strong team behind you.
So Jerry, you obviously in a couple of occasions today talked about getting exposure in the media. Maybe talk to some of these people here that are probably looking at ways, how do I get my name out there? How do I get in the newspaper? How do I get on the radio? Maybe give them some tips on what they can do.
Well, yeah.
Except for the account.
Yeah, get dumped in a bunch of crap. No, the whole thing now, I mean, you have so many more ways to do it with social media. You make sure that you're active on that, but never just put all your money into social media because you need traditional media to back that up. Because as you know, if you're on there, Facebook's for old people, in case you don't know. So if you're on there spinning around, you're going to go right by an ad. So at least if you see that, you're going to go to traditional media. You put your buy in the middle of that, but you make sure that you stay active in this. And nowadays you can use every platform, but you got to think out of the box once again, something that nobody else is doing. And if you're the person who does that, you're the person who gets noticed. And loyalty is the key. I remember Johnsonville Sausage came to me, and they knew that I was friends with Tony, and Spalubbles was crushing them here in Alberta. And the guy said to me, hey, if you become our spokesperson, I'm going to pay you $8,000 a month just to talk about Johnsonville Sausage. And I said, sure, just let me go over to Tony's and kick him in the balls first. That'd be a great idea. So I said, no, you can keep your $8,000. I'll keep my friend Tony. And you don't see Johnsonville coming to build a football or baseball stadium. You don't see him stepping up to help almost every business that us in town. So loyalty is also a very important thing. And once again, think outside of the box, and people will notice you.
You know, that's, speaking about digital media, I want to take maybe 3 minutes and introduce our sponsors, not even our sponsors, they're actually our collaborators. And all the money that we make here today, that's a great reason why these folks, I mean, it's really tough to get these two guys out. Like, I'm just telling you. Because if they respond to absolutely every request, I mean, you wouldn't be able to sleep, right? So we really appreciate it, and without our group, the Power Network Group, it wouldn't happen. So I'm going to take 20 seconds here to go around the room. Mr. John Saliga from Vanguard Cleaning Systems for franchisor in Western Canada. Greg Boulanger from Lucky Fishing. I always get it wrong. So there's no bait and switch on that one. It's the real deal. And also Greg is part of AV&D Media, Mega Media, and I was going to keep it for last, but it's a good segue. Veronica and Alexandra, you guys can stand up, please. These are our media people. Here's the biggest challenge they have in life. All right, they got to deal with me. And I gotta tell you, they did an incredible job. We did literally nothing on this, really. And Jerry was saying, do things differently and do it from the heart and be loyal. I look forward to seeing everybody at my office, and these girls just absolutely lit it up. And number one reason, I know that your dad's here. I can say this honestly. I say it all the time. It really is upbringing. They're incredibly polite, incredibly smart. And to make something like this happen is incredible. And so I thank you very much for everything you guys do. We have, where's Chris Blender? Information management expert, digital transformation expert. Chris is a great friend and collaborator. Dave McCorkle, did I see Dave? The greatest coach since Scotty Bowman right there. McCorkle Consulting, unbelievable career coaching. They do a fantastic job. Where's Pietro? Pietro Desano from Desano Associates. He just stepped out. Can you guys let him know I said hello? We'll bring him back. Maybe we'll all clap when he comes back from the bathroom. Mario Taniguchi from Mario Taniguchi Communications. I don't think I'm missing anybody. What's that? Oh, where's Morrow? Oh, there he is. Morrow Klenzik from MPMP Engineering. I apologize, Morrow. You were my first call this morning anyway. So, Morrow's in the electrical design business. Incredible friend, incredible collaborator. Thank you for everything, Morrow. And, of course, my team at DMA Global. Where are they? Michael had long hair. There's Tony over there. Vincenzo, Greg Tedesco. See Michael over there? He had long black hair till he met me about 2 weeks ago. So,
True story.
I want to ask a question out there because everybody kind of claims that they know Tony and Jerry and this and that. I have one question. If you guys get this right, I will give you $20. All right? So Tony had I think it was a rookie card, the Jogo rookie card. And when you were at the Stampeders, I can't remember which one it was. You were a rookie with Edmonton know how you put your name, height, weight, and everything? Favorite musical artist? Maybe it wasn't your rookie card. Anybody guess who Tony put down as his favorite musical artist? Oh, here's
How we doing there, all right?
Anybody want to take a guess what was on behind?
Probably his brother Joe.
Joe? That would have been a good one. Yeah.
But unfortunately, at that time that card came out, he was still in diapers.
Tony, you want to tell who was on there?
So, every now and then.
You didn't know I knew this, right?
No, but, so the league would come out with these Jogo cards, so Georgie Hopkins would send us a questionnaire, and you could do two things. You could be honest, or you could make them pretty funny, so I made mine pretty funny, so it was Zanfir, Master of the Pan Flute. Favorite movie, The Party with Peter Sellers.
That's right.
Yeah, we just had some fun with it, yeah.
So every time I'm away, and it's just recently I sent it to you, right? We were in Palm Springs, and this guy. Oh, here's your guy.
I played the recorder in grade 6. So I was like,
Just one quick question for Jerry. What are you up to right now?
Right now I'm working for Bell Media again. They hired me back to do sales, and I said I don't really want to do sales. It involves meetings and going to the radio station. I've had enough of that. So they said, how about if you don't have to have meetings, just go back and you get lunches, we pay. I go, that's a great idea. So sort of a part-time job, and it's working out good. I got to tell you one more Tony story though. This is fantastic. On the day the Pope had his birthday, I said, Tony, you got to come down. You speak Italian. Let's call the Pope and see how far up the ladder we can get. So Tony comes in. He sits down. I know we're going to get in trouble for this, and the boss is going to be running down. And there's a lot of Italians here, so Tony will be able to speak into Italian and translate what he said. But we got right to the second guy underneath the Pope before we could actually talk to the Pope to wish him a happy birthday and what we got him for a present. I'll let Tony explain it to you.
so this cardinal comes to the phone and he goes, where are you calling from? And in Italian I say, well, I'm calling from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Oh, Canada. I said, we love, and it was Pope Benedict, and he got into some trouble shortly thereafter, and then boom, he was gone. So we kind of played on what he was kind of in trouble for, and I'm not going to get into that, because this whole movement, now you got to be careful. So anyway, so in Italian, I say to the cardinal, the Pope, we love him, with a strong Catholic population. I'm a son of immigrant Italians, and we got this dialogue going. I said, and I hear the Pope loves kids, and he goes, oh yeah, he adores kids. I said, we know that. He goes, does he ever get to interact or play with them? And we were just kind of, it wasn't good with the angle that we're going with that, right? So we had some fun, but this poor cardinal was very, very sincere. And finally, the cardinal starts going in Italian. He's going, look, I don't have much time. Please, thank you, and grazie. So we got off. So what Jerry does then is he takes the whole 2-minute dialogue, and so I would say something in Italian like "Ciao, come va?" and then one of the promo ladies would repeat it in English in a really sexy marketing voice. Hi, how are you? And then the Pope would respond in Italian, and then she would respond with him like, I'm fine, where are you calling from? So you hear the Italian, you hear the English, you hear the Italian, and if you kind of wrap your head of what Pope Benedict got in trouble for, and kids and parks and playing, you kind of get the gist of what we were doing there. But it was pretty crazy, and Mary Green Knights of Columbus, St. Peter's would let me go to church for at least a month after that and stuff. And so, but no, it's just some of the crazy things that whoever thought that, that we would have got to a couple levels below the Pope, but we had some fun. But before I pass it back, Jerry's very, very humble and creative. He actually got through to Don King. And I'm going to pass it, because this is a funny story, bro. So what would happen is, when we were at the old deli, we were there early, like at 3, 4 in the morning. He'd get into the studio about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we'll probably get into this a little later on, but we ended up getting a little shtick going with this Italian truck driver, blah, blah, blah. But before that, Jerry used to do prank phone calls, and he'd phone people up incognito. He'd be in cahoots, like he'd phone Frank and say, Frank, who do you want to gag? Frank would say, well, let's gag Tony. Tony just brought his car into the body shop, and then he'd phone as the body shop and totally say that they did totally something different. It was 3 times the price. Get the person to lose their minds on the phone and then say, hey, no, it's just Jerry Forbes, and give him a prize. So anyway, he phones the hotel, and he manages to get through to Don King, and I'm gonna let him tell you the rest of the story.
Just an aside, we're talking about Don King, the boxing.
Don King, the boxing guy.
The guy with the big hair.
So I called up and said, I did a Mike Tyson interview, and I got right through to him, and I'm talking to him like Mike Tyson, and he's buying it. So finally he realizes, okay, this isn't Mike Tyson I'm talking to. But I said, you know who I am, don't you, Don? He goes, I'm the guy that does all your pay-per-view in Calgary. Oh, you're doing a great job. I was going to tell you what a fantastic. God bless America. God bless Canada. And we had him believing, and I thought, well, I'll go back to Mike Tyson. I got through, and I got all Mike Tyson's sister's telephone messages from the hotel. Another time, Tony and I called up, and I got through to Brian Mulroney, the Prime Minister, as George Bush, and wished him a happy birthday. And he was such a dumb schmuck, he bought the whole thing, so that was lots of fun. But Tony and I would just think of ways to annoy people to get on the phone and do things different. And I think that's what made us different. And every other radio station would say, like, what's with that Forbes guy and the sausage guy? They seem to be able to pull it all off. But once again, it was having a great network of people like you guys have here, where never be afraid to call up the other guy and say, why don't we work together for the betterment of everybody here and see if we can't do something different than people are doing, anywhere else. Even if it's supporting a candidate in the election, we've got that coming up. It's going to mean a lot for Alberta. We just always, if somebody calls, Tony and I try and step up. So that's a message I'd like to get out. Just make sure you have an army of friends and guys who are willing to help you out. And if you look around the room, everybody got up this morning at 5:45 because they give a damn, and they came here to think of new ways to help their business. And there isn't a tougher time in business than right now, so I applaud all of you for coming out.
Quick question, Jerry. Who's the craziest person you've ever interviewed?
You're right here, honest to God. Tony is such a comedian, and Frank. These are just 2 guys who I met, like I said, until I realized how funny Tony was. And then if you've ever been to the Italian Sportsman dinner, you'll know exactly the act that Tony and Frank did. Celebrities come in all the time and go, these 2 guys are crazy, right? I would think Tony is one of the funniest guys. Another thing I want to say about him, a lot of people probably haven't read this yet, but this year he was picked as the CFL Alumni Man of the Year. And that's out to everybody in the CFL ever. So really a cool thing, and people are saying to Tony, why don't you run for mayor? And I said, because Tony's not that stupid. Who needs that nonsense?
Or maybe make Doug Ford look like a Boy Scout. So it's like, no, I don't think so. What was kind of cool is, Bruno, can we just tell another story? Like, another story? Oh, okay, all right. So, no, I just realized, so Jerry was talking about spontaneity, and I think, Mario, you had asked a little earlier with Jerry, how can you connect, promote your company, and Jerry hit it. It's about uniqueness and spontaneity, and that kind of happened with us, like just kind of indirectly through Jerry, we got to promote our company by having a character on his show. And what happened is I'd phone in the mornings and request songs, and at 5 in the morning, like who's up at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, but the morning show guy and bakers and sausage guys and maybe a lot of people here that went into the office early. So Jerry had this routine where there would be a little clip of a foreign language, and it would be usually something not offside because it's radio, right? But something that's it's a little bit on the border, right? So one day he had this Italian saying come on, and a bunch of people were phoning in, and they were getting it wrong. So finally I phoned in, but I phoned in broken English to try and fool him. And so I get through, and I think it was Jake at the time. She goes, hello, hi, I'm Giuseppe. Oh, Jerry, we got Giuseppe. Jerry, I'm Giuseppe. And then he goes, Jake, just a minute, let's go to commercial. And then he goes, Smalley, is that you? I go, yeah, it's me. He goes, okay, let's roll with this. So I go, Jerry, those are people who phoned you before. they're not the real Italian, and plus so Jerry played the real Italian, but we speak dialect. So what he translated was, "Scusa, fatto piedi tu," and that means, "Excuse me, you just farted." And so people were getting that wrong, like, "Oh, excuse me, did you drop your phone?" You know, stupid. And so finally I go, "Jerry, you got to the wrong language. In my dialect it says, "Scusa, ha fatto scorreggio." And what does that mean, Giuseppe? I said, "That's a fart, Jerry. You know, you had the gas so from that moment on, for every second day he would phone me and we'd do Giuseppe the Italian truck driver. So at 5:30 in the morning, you would get, Giuseppe, where are you at? "I'm going to Falcon Ridge. He goes, "Falcon Ridge. Falcon Ridge." I said, "That's right, the Falcon Ridge. Jerry, we got to this big slab on a fucking crest away." Falcon Crest, that's what I said to Jerry, Falcon Crest. First I go fuck off at Tim Hortons for coffee, yes. Tim Hortons. "Well, where are you going to go this afternoon?" "We got a retaining wall for the 22X at Suck Me Bitch." He goes, "Succomi Beach." I said, "That's what I said, Suck Me Bitch." And so, can you imagine us doing that now? Oh my God. I mean, people picketing Spelongos. Oh. So, people had a little bit of a sense of humor back then, right? So this went on for about 15 years, and so initially, you know, my dad worked for Rolling Mix Concrete, another great business, Italian immigrants, you know, still going to this day, 60 years running, the kids are running it now and stuff. And then halfway through, I said, "You know what, my good buddy Frank, at that time Frank was part of ASTI, now he's an Afrox." I go, "You know what, Giuseppe got $2 more an hour, he started working for ASTI." So we did a whole episode of how Giuseppe left Rolling Mix to work for ASTI. Oh, did my dad get in trouble, man, and people were just livid. People wondering, "Why did Giuseppe quit Rolling Mix?" I said, because Mathworks paid him $2 more an hour. And so the best part was, because Frank is a card himself, he's hilarious. Frank started becoming part of the show as my boss. So I'd be playing hooky and we'd be phoning. And now we started occasionally on Fridays. We started doing this show. We go in there on Friday mornings in the studio. And I tell you, one day we were just having a blast, and there was some tensions between two countries in the Asia, you know, and India and China were having some issues and stuff, and we were doing some Giuseppe, and Jerry said, "You know, Giuseppe, do you know geography?" "Yes," said Jerry, "and I was very good in the geography in the school." He says, "Do you know the border between India and China?" Now forgive me, this was just a joke. I go, 52nd Street, and the whole phone's lit up, man, and we start. I can't believe I even said that, man, but it was like, look, all us Italians grew up in Bridgeland. You know what I was saying? It just came out, and Frank looks at me, and we just started laughing. I think Jerry played 3 songs because we just couldn't stop. Oh, did we get in trouble? Oh my God, did we get in trouble? We did a lot of barbecues for Falcon Ridge and Terradale, all that area for a long time.
Just a payback.
Yeah. So.
You know, we got a lot of feedback in the last one. Most of it was good, and actually all of it was good, except just so that you guys know, most people ask for networking at the beginning and at the end, so that's why we're rolling through a little bit. And the mystery guest, I mean, you guys have blown it 500 times, but I cannot have Tony and Jerry up here without Mr. Frank Mafrica. So Frank, you're going to put you on the spot, so... Check. Can you guys hear me? Check. For those of you who don't know Frank, every day, every night that you guys are walking your dogs or going for a jog, look down on the sidewalk. Thank God Frank poured those sidewalks, because there's not a sidewalk that you haven't poured out here, right, Frank?
That's true, and I know who's buried under every one of them.
So, Frank, why don't you let us know a little bit about your business?
Well, I've been in this business now. I'm in concrete roadworks, sidewalks, curbs and gutters. I do repairs and also do subdivisions, all new subdivision work. this is my 42nd year in this business. In the winter, I take care of. I also do, you know, cornerstones of the community, buried under golf courses. I know anywhere you want to know my best thing in life in the winter, because it's seasonal work, I collect receivables. Anybody having trouble with receivables, call me. I send the get well cards before the surgery. And this month's special is you get to pick the knee. So, that's basically what it is. And I've actually known, I met Jerry through Tony. I've known Tony his whole life. I mean, he's like my little brother. And, you know, with these two guys, wherever you go, I mean, they're just noticed everywhere. At one time we went to Hall & Oates. There's 3,000 people in there. And someone yells out, "There's Jerry Forbes and Tony Spallettini." Everybody turns around and sit with these guys. They're turning red, and Tony whispers, "I shouldn't have yelled that out, should I?"
Before, it was the best when Frank used to work for Asti. He'd always stamp the sidewalks, "Kiss my Asti," which I thought that was great.
What I used to say was, if you like our work, tell someone. If not, kiss my ass.
Frank, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen come out of these two guys?
Oh, I can't say this in mixed company. But no, well, a lot of the fundraisers made me laugh because we tried to raise money, and Jerry would always get a kick out of this. I'd say, okay, 1 sausage for 3, 2 for 5, or 3 for 20. And believe it or not, I get a lot of people 3 for 20. And I'd say, boy, we got some mental giants in this place. So, I mean, just enormous. We had so many laughs at the Stampede Parade. We'd be there at 6 a.m. on 9th Avenue with the barbecuing and the laughs we would have, and just letting everyone know, and of course, the networking. And, I mean, the exposure, I mean, I heard it too from my guys were all happy when Giuseppe went to work for Asti, and then MathWorks. I mean, and then it just blown from there. And then, of course, in our industry, the land development and all, there's a lot of philanthropy and fundraising, and you know, you get hit on by all of them, but we pick and choose a lot of them. And with Jerry, with his causes, with the Kids Fund, the CJ Kids Fund, and the Santa, it touches home, and we really, and even to this day, I even spread it through for all our employees to ensure that, you know, it's nice to give back even a little bit, regardless. Every little bit counts. And I have to thank these guys for really helping me even step forward, and I can't say enough about these two guys.
You know, one of the things is that I joke around with Frank, and I have a lot of respect for Frank ever since I met him. I really do, well, all three of them. But Frank was away, so I told Tony and Jerry, I said, I'm going to invite Frank, and of course, and the receptionist, the girls called the receptionist, and she goes, "I'm sorry, Mr. Maverick doesn't attend such events, right?" And I'm like, "Well, what events does he attend? I mean, this is the closest one I know." But this is the story that I want to tell about Frank is, so he called me back and he said, "Bruno, what's this event and this and that? Of course it's going to go up." The first thing out of your mouth was, "Do you need me to help you with anything, money, funding, or do you want me to donate anything?" And that's the one common denominator that I can really throw this out, is that if ever you want to throw money at us, no, I'm just joking. If ever, you know, you want to help somebody, really mean it from the heart. Now, we obviously said no, but that was the first thing Frank said, is that whatever you need, right? And I'm gonna share a quick story, because in 2013, we had the floods, remember? And I must confess, my wife actually went to school with Tony since junior high, and I never knew that until I first met Tony. And there's never a time, and I was going to say the University of Calgary Dinos, the two people who come to mind, I know I've had a great experience with everybody there, but the two people who come to mind when I think of the alumni are you and Cody Irvin. Just the toughness, and the toughness of being a loyal friend to the end. And my wife and I, especially my wife, would always tell my kids that Tony Spolatini was never a jerk in school, even though he's a big man on campus. And that's something that I've always thought of you, Tony. So the floods in 2013, that was like a scene out of MASH on 9th Avenue, right? And so somebody told me that Spolombo's has been hit pretty hard. And there was stuff all over. It was a disaster. And so the guys in my office kind of said, you know what, like, let's go buy some pizzas. Like, how weird is that? Let's feed the people at the deli. And so we came over, I don't know, 15, 20 pizzas because all your boys were working. And what I found absolutely amazing, and it struck in my mind, I keep telling my kids this all the time, is that we walk in the deli and it's a disaster. Remember, the computers run on the street and everything like that. And here's Tony going around, what can I get you? What can I get you? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, your business is kind of destroyed. And that's kind of the greatness that these people have. And Jerry with his foundation, and Frank went out of his way to introduce my son to Johnny Bench, and that was a highlight of his life. But you don't know the little things that make a huge difference. Incredible hearts. A lot of joking around and stuff, but it is an incredible heart. And by that, I'd like to bring up Tony Predigiani of Lions Club, because this is what it's all about. He's going to do a quick little presentation for Tony.
We just broke a record for the most Tonys in one room.
I don't need the mic. My name's Tony. I'm with Bruno. I work at DMA. I'm also with the Calgary North Lions Club, and the Power Network Group donates the proceeds from these events to the Calgary North Lions Club so that we can continue our work. I just want to recognize Lion Otto Silzer. He's at the back. He's our caterer. He's with the Lions Club of Calgary, who just celebrated. Lion Otto's club is the oldest club in Alberta. They just celebrated their 90th anniversary this last June. So they've been in this community, serving the community for over 90 years. So thank you, Otto, for the breakfast. A quick plug. We're probably one of the best kept secrets. The Lions Clubs International has 1.4 million members in over 200 countries in the world. I had the opportunity to go to the International Convention in Milan, which was great, and really set in my heart what we do globally and what we reach out to. A week ago, our Calgary North Lions Club had its Make a Child Dream Come True Tournament of Dreams to raise money for one of our projects that looks after children whose prognosis is uncertain. And it was our 17th annual. And every year, without fail, Spolombo's has donated sausages to our golfers so that their experience is being wonderful. And I don't think there's anybody in here that's been to a charity event that hasn't had Spolombo's step up and donate to us. So, Tony, on behalf of the Calgary North Lions Club, I'd like to present you with a certificate of appreciation for all that you do for us. Like I say, Tony doesn't like to accept the accolades for this, but if you go to any charity event, who's there? Spolombo's. Thank you, Tony.
Mario, just one second. And first of all, I have two great guys that I wouldn't be where I am today, and that's my cousin Tom and Mike Palumbo. And excuse me, because you know what, I get to be the face of the company. And again, that's team. Those guys were old linemen, okay? And that says a lot about guys that are in the trench. Because the old linemen never get any credit, and they never, but people don't realize the old linemen are the keys to the offense. They open up holes, they protect the quarterback, but they get none of the press, right? So if they protect the quarterback throws 4 touchdowns, who's the MVP? The quarterback. They open up holes, the running back runs for 200 yards, who's the MVP? The running back, right? No one ever really notices those guys, right? And that's what those guys have always been. They've always worked behind the scenes and just, let me be the clown, let me be the face, let me come out here, let me talk to you, and let me get all the accolades. And from the bottom of my heart, I am nothing without those two gentlemen. And you know what? They probably would be angry that I'm saying that, but that is the truth. And you know, Mario, you mentioned earlier about team. That's team. And one last thing before I give this about networking. With Calgary, you never know where your relationships take you. I was 17 years old, and I had just signed with the Dinos to play, and there was spring camp. And I had a good spring camp, and this young, good-looking Italian sports writer for the Herald wrote an article about this kid from St. Francis. That was Mario Tonaguzzi. I still have that article today, Swallatini, new kid on the block, right? I got to know Mario, and a friendship that started back in 1983, and Mario covered us through university, he covered us through the Stampeders, and we always stayed in touch. We stayed in touch, and we kept our friendship, and you know, Mario's is now in different forms of media, and Mario time and time again has come back to talk about Spolumbos and to talk about us, and he does it strictly because it's from the heart, and that's true networking. I don't think you get that kind of networking in a lot of other cities. And like Jerry was saying, be unique, do something different. The sincere networking is the best networking. The sincere fundraising is the best fundraising. And that's what Calgary is, and that's what this room is. So again, Mario, thanks, thank you.
We have a few minutes before we kind of break up. I'm going to ask anybody has any questions for any of the guests. Please feel free to do so right now. Any questions? Do you have any questions? I'm going to ask the question while people think. What's your favorite Spolumbo sausage for each of you?
Jalapeno cheddar.
Oh, hot and spicy for sure, yeah.
What do you get when Tony sees you in the place?
Bob has a question.
What do you get when Tony sees you and does this to the cashier?
Well, if you're a friend, that means you're probably going to get free lunch, and if we don't like you, you're the new special sausage.
So I'll ask a question. So Tony, why don't you run for mayor?
You know what? This guy could easily do it. You know what? Politics, you've got to have a special. I had a friend, a teammate of mine, run, and it got really dirty. And a guy just trying to do something better for a city, piddly stuff lately gets exposed. I think it's sad to see politically, provincially, and civically that we've kind of reverted to U.S. type political tactics, and I think that's the biggest fear is that.
What do you think of that? Like, is the city hindering business growth in Calgary these days?
I think the city just learned a big lesson. I think everybody on city council just about saw their jobs go away. I know I had 4 councilors call me asking me to write a biased article on the arena. They're absolutely terrified right now, and they should be because of all the huge tax increases that they first of all put on downtown, and also because they took that and then started charging people in the suburbs what they were charging people downtown, and they just kept continuing to spend. And people finally stood up like they did in Hong Kong and said, you know what, enough is enough. And it took some of the people even in Inglewood who actually had voted for the mayor and city council to finally go, what, you know, we made a mistake. And then she went nuts. He was a little bit out of control, and he needed a good smack in the head, and he got it. So I think now, next time people vote, city council is going to be held a lot more accountable than they are now.
Tony?
Yeah, I think you know, Calgary in prior administrations was very, very pro-business, and first term I was very, you know, open to change, but over the last, you know, 8 years, it's just gotten, it's, you know, you get hindrance, like Jerry said, taxes. Thank God, you know, we're established and are a multifaceted business where, you know, we've got wholesale, catering, and retail. If it wasn't for that, because our catering took a big hit because we basically serviced a lot of the businesses downtown, and a lot of those businesses are gone, right? So as Jerry reiterated, we need to stop taking the knees out of small business and mid-sized businesses. And obviously the big ones have been hit too, but Calgary was built on entrepreneurism. If you noticed, every time there was an oil crash or energy crash, a lot of people in the energy industry went out, reinvented themselves, and that's what I love about Alberta and Calgary, is that people, they don't just wallow in pity, they go out and reinvent themselves. So every time, you know, the energy industry took a bit of a dip, people would get a package or they'd get laid off, rather than wallow or ask for handouts, they go and start a business. And then when everything corrected itself, they're now doing something they probably love even more and being successful. So I would just love to see those businesses get an opportunity again like we did to start, to survive, to get some breaks, so that in turn, you know, what started out as 3 guys, now we employ, which is nowhere near what some of your companies employ, but we employ, you know, close to 60 people. So it allows you to just, you know, spread the wealth.
Okay, any thoughts, Frank?
Well, I guess they pretty well covered most of it, but business tax, property tax in the last 4 years has been ridiculous. For example, the building that I own, taxes have increased in the last 5 years almost threefold. It's ridiculous. I think that, you know, with the demographics of Nenshi, for example, the 18 to 25 group, that's who we attracted. Now, none of them are really taxpayers, so to speak, but that group now is important, is they're older, and they realize now that we have to go out and vote, be more active. We need to know what's going on, because it's sad when you look downtown. At 2 o'clock, I used to say, no way I'm going downtown, because of the traffic. You go downtown anytime now. It's not that bad. So that's a sign. I think that now businesses, hopefully we've bottomed out, and I hope that with change in governments, which we had one provincially, and hopefully federally, it makes an impact for everybody in this room.
Okay, thanks. We have one question here.
You know, long time listener, first time caller. You guys have done a lot of events, a lot of, you know, I'm going to say wild and crazy things to kind of get your names out there, to bring attention to the causes that you have. At this point, we have a lot of businesses here that are also looking to kind of bring more attention to their businesses and stuff. And you said you got to think outside the box. Looking back at everything you did, do you believe that there is such a thing still as negative advertising, negative marketing?
We and as one of the jokes that we push things, right? And but I think honestly, in all sincerity, I think we got away with it because we were able to laugh at each other. But I do feel we grew up in a time where maybe we weren't as thoughtful, weren't as understanding. I think each generation has gotten more understanding. Like in my grandfather's day, I hate to think of whatever so my dad's day, they're a little lighter, our day, and now I'm kind of proud that our kids are oblivious to most, like, you know, we're understanding of gender, of race, of everything, and so I think the important thing now is to be really conscious of that. It was easy, you know, I even watch I watched Eddie Murphy Raw. My son wanted to watch Eddie Murphy Raw, and that was back in 1983. And I don't think Eddie Murphy was out to offend anybody, but we view dialogue a lot different now. And as much as that was funny, and I used to think that was hilarious, I'm kind of glad, and it opened my eyes, that, you know, maybe we shouldn't say some things just to get a laugh, even if we don't mean it. Be very understanding of who we're talking to and what group we're approaching, because it's easy sometimes to be careless and unfeeling, and so I think it's really important now. Bad advertising is not understanding who you're marketing, who you're dealing with, and basically being insincere. So yeah, you definitely, you got to be really, really careful now. So I hope haven't said that, I wouldn't offend anybody today. But yeah, so yeah, bad advertising is definitely maybe pushing certain things too far. And I think, you know what? That's why, I'm not gonna lie to you, I think that's why we kind of, hey Frank, we've kind of stepped back on a lot of things, because, I'm still coming to grips with, okay, what's too far? In my heart, I know that I'm just having fun, but you know what? You've got to be just really, really careful that, you're not offending someone, even unintentionally.
Unfortunately, go ahead, Jared.
No, I was just saying, it's funny now, if you notice anything that touches a heart, there was one that was just up there, a little black child running to meet a little white child in the middle of a sidewalk, and the dad filming it, and now those two little kids hugged each other, and they'd known each other for like 2 months, and that resonated, it struck a chord with everybody, that if we could all be a little nicer to each other like these 2 and 3-year-old kids, the world would be a better place. That's the kind of advertising you want to do.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I said this at the beginning, but when I go over to Splumbo's, I always schedule a couple hours. There's all the great people we need. The one thing I wanted to maybe reiterate is that we call it extended 2 minutes, because life seems to go by just like that in 2 minutes. I would highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time getting to know each other, even if it's past this, this time, in terms of our networking event. I really would, if you ever have time, the opportunity to talk to Frank in Africa, there's a reason why you're up here. You encourage everybody to what I call extended 2 minutes. Make sure that you guys get some photo ops or, whatever, just shake hands, get a card. I will not be able to talk to everybody today, that's for sure, but I do promise I will call everybody and thank them personally after I get back next week. For no other reason than I thoroughly and honestly appreciate everybody that comes out here and tries to make this place a little bit better. Tony touched on this about Calgary being what Calgary is, and I remember the first time coming out here, out here is very entrepreneurial. When somebody buys you a coffee, they're buying you a coffee. I come from a political city, which is an unbelievable city. Please visit Ottawa. Tony almost got traded there. Actually, we were destined to know each other. We were joking around about that. But there's a lot of expense accounts flying around there. But here, when somebody buys you a coffee, it's unbelievable. Now, you might notice that I don't go to Splumbo, some of you guys, as much in Inglewood, is because here's a little plug: is Frank owns a Splumbo's in Mayland Heights. So it's closer to our office, and we go down there and have a great time. Frank, why don't you just quickly?
It's with Tom, Mike, and Tony, and myself, and Joe Ferraro. We came up with an idea that hey, there's nothing in that area, basically in the off of Memorial. It's actually on 19th Street and First Avenue, right, the Center Avenue,
Right near the Parmalat.
The Parmalat. There's the old Saint, 315 19th Street. So we decided we had this space. It's coming on 2 years, and it's starting to come along. It's actually a nice little. It's just about. You're never going to get the feeling of the deli on 9th Avenue, but this is the closest thing.
It's a beautiful place, and anybody in that area that needs to do any kind of catering or a party, it's a beautiful place. I'm not just plugging it; it's just actually an expansion, and I think that you guys should be applauded. You're over at the airport.
It's for this guy.
In the co-op.
Tony's smart too. He's going to put Splumbo's right next to every marijuana shop, so don't let it.
Well, everybody, you know what? Unfortunately, everything comes to an end, but I don't think this conversation is going to come to an end anytime soon. I'm going to have one little last word before we have, I think we have a couple of prizes, not prizes, but we have a couple of gifts for the boys and girls here. Really quickly, one of the reasons why business is kind of up and down, and I'm an entrepreneur, and man, I'll tell you what, one of the reasons why I think you guys are super successful. You don't need to tell you this, but when I go to the deli, I could be having a really shitty day. And the energy that, you know, these folks bring to normal day, you would think they never have a problem with the world. And I believe that that is it. I think it just comes down to energy. And either you suck it out of a room or you put it in a room. And I know I've been guilty, ask my kids, of sucking the energy out of a room sometimes. But I wanted to, and that actually goes to Mario. I look forward to talking to Mario every time he gives me a call. And we have some great people out here that I just get a big kick out of talking to. So if anything I can throw out is just, you know, inject some energy. Everybody's got shitty things in their lives and stuff like that, but it's tough enough to grow old. Just inject energy, and I think that that's one of the things, especially in Squamish or listening to CJ. I remember coming from Ottawa, and I'm listening to CJ 92, and I'm like, who is this guy? This is funny stuff. And so that's basically what we want to leave you with, is that, you know, pump in some energy. You know, at least give somebody in this room a shot at doing business with you. Just give them a shot. Give them an at-bat, right? Best thing we can do is hit it out of the park. Okay, everybody thinks we're all striking out these days, but I think that's not the case. So, guys, let's give each other a little boost out there. And we have a couple things for our guests over here. So we'd like to thank Tony, Jerry, and Mr. Matt Forgot for coming out here. These are for the significant others we never forget. And actually, we have the young ladies. We got you guys flowers for everything you guys did for us.
Thanks a lot. Don't worry, thank you. Thanks.
You're gonna make us look thoughtful at home. Good call. Thank you very much. Okay, you bet. Thank you. That's the biggest surprise of today. They're assuming we can read.
Yeah, and you know what? The reason why we give out flowers when we're talking about this is because you could be at home, and the amount of time that you guys give up, you do give away. It's our way to say thank you for kicking you out of the house. Any last quick words?
I thought maybe Tony give out the specials at the deli today. Is it Mama's meatloaf today, or what do we got?
What is it? Today's Wednesday, it's turkey loaf, so yeah, because if you come down, lunch is on me, say lunch is on Tony. What the heck? But no, thank you, and again, I just want to say one thing, is that I was born and raised here, born at the General Hospital, and I truly believe we probably wouldn't be where we're at if we had started in another city, and that's what makes Calgary so great, is that